Hello everybody, today we're going to be doing a really short Spore tutorial. We're going to focus on how to make more interesting and more elaborate buildings in the game using the building creator tool. So the first thing you're going to want to make sure of when you start your building is deciding whether you want it to actually be used in-game or whether you want it to be used for an adventure. If you want it to be used for an adventure, which type you choose is up to the specific benefits that each building has, and we'll talk about this a little bit. If you want it to be used in-game, well, you're going to, obviously have to choose the one that corresponds with the type of building you want it to match with in-game. So, if you want City Hall, you have to do that, of course. So, basically, the special things that each building type has is that City Hall has a few, colonial type domes and constructions that you can put on top of a dome for a City Hall type building. Houses come with some nice residential things like types of fences and stuff like that. Factories have these weird gizmos and gadgets, and entertainment has all different types of gizmos and gadgets. So let's just try a house really quickly now. So here we have the editor. The first thing I want to mention is that you want to stay away from windows. Not only do they not look that great, but they clutter your thing up really quickly. So just watch this. I'm going to put this block here just for a demonstration. You just plop a bunch of these windows down. See, you already have one bar. You put up a few more, and then you have two of them. So you're not going to be able to do very much if you want to make a really big building, because three of them filled up one of these circles. So what you're going to find is that it's much more efficient to use blocks in creative ways. So what you can do is say take one of these, and remember, by using the scroll wheel on your mouse, you can change the size of this, and of course you can always manipulate how large these are. And remember that if you scroll down to the bottom, you could also very similarly just shrink this down, but notice that this is not going to be as thin, and the edges are going to be much more these edges are going to be much more fillered, while these ones are going to be much more exact. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're trying to do this, because these things have approximately the same dimensions, but this one has more filleted edges. So if you want to create something that would do that, then keep that in mind when you're resizing things. So now that we have this shape here, we can creatively use a bunch of these, and I would personally recommend these four. These four are very useful here. Deco Toaster is pretty useful too. These two have their moments. Most of the other ones are very situational. These ones at the top actually are pretty useful as well. It depends on the situation. So what you can do with them actually is just mix and match them a bit, put them all in, and so let's just go through something really quickly now. There are three buttons on the keyboard which are going to be very useful to you. There's the Ctrl Key. The Ctrl Key allows you to move an item up and down like this. The Shift Key allows you to move it on the horizontal plane. So you can move this around as much as you want. And the Alt key is going to copy a piece. This is very useful if you've created something very exact like this, for example, and you don't want to have to resize this yourself. Well, of course, you can just press Alt, get another one. You can also combine keys to get different combinations. Like, for example, you can hold down Alt and Shift to ensure that it goes on the same layer you want it to, rather than, floating all about on different planes and stuff like that. Because notice, if you just move this up and down like this, it's going to go all over the place. But if you hold down Shift, it's going to stay on the level it's at. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just sort of create a little entertainment center. I know I'm currently building a house, but I'm just trying to show you some of the features. So again, you can hold down the Shift and Alt keys to copy this. Then you can, for example, take one of these and put it up here. And you can then get one of these, and we'll hold down Shift to keep it at the level it's at, put it Control to make it go a little bit lower, and again, mixing and matching those key combinations. And then we'll actually copy this thing here, and we'll rotate it using this tool right now. And we can make this side just a little bit taller, make it a little bit asymmetrical. Or actually, I can't really make that much taller, so what I'm going to do is lower this one a bit. So right now we have some sort of thing here. Now, of course, similarly to Windows, doors also clutter up the thing very quickly. However, there are some nice aesthetic features you can get from the doors. So, you know, obviously just keep that in mind, that the doors can actually be kind of useful, even though the windows aren't. However, what you really want to do is just realize that sometimes the best approach is not the most direct one, and you can use these to create different building features. For example, like windows. If you make a really thin layer with this thing here, you can put it up, hold down Shift to move it in, and then we can actually just expand this a little bit, lower it down, and then hold down Ctrl and Alt to copy this layer up and down like this. Then what we can do is, similarly, we can get one of these, put it all the way at the bottom here, shrink it down to size, and shift it into place here. Control and make it go down. Again, I might have to make this go up a bit, which is going to make the edges a little bit more filleted, but I don't care in this case. Then you can hold down Shift and Alt to copy this and keep it on the same plane it's supposed to be on. It's also good to keep your camera angle at a place where it, you know, gives you what you want. So then I just put this over here like this, this over here like this over here like this. And as you can see, I think that this is a much more interesting construction than just, you know, using the conventional window tools. Because now you have your own window designs, kind of like an office building, and you know, you can create a lot of different things, you know, just using the blocks that you have. So again, I can just put this over here, using this to make another building design here. Something else you're going to want to keep in mind, and this is what I'm about to talk about, is you use the blocks and textures together to create the building, you know, create the building's layout and everything like that, and what you want it to look like. So this is actually kind of looking like one of these federal buildings you kind of see in DC and stuff like that, but what you should get out of this is that sometimes the most unconventional route is the one that gives you the best result in the end. So what we're going to do is go over here to paintbrush mode, and it can be tempting just to use this to make the windows, because, like, for example, let's undo that actually. For example, what you can do is just paint this blue, and that's, you know, satisfactory, but it's not really, it doesn't really stand out. So what you need to do is just notice that sometimes you can use these and create unconventional patterns. Like, for example, these are supposed to be shingles on the roof, but if you color them blue, and remember, if you double click on these, you can get a more detailed palette. So you can click there, and see, now you have different types of window designs. So for example, you can take this, put this on here, now you have different windows than you had before, and you have 12 pages of these, so you can experiment all you want. See, this one's kind of cool. I mean, they're bricks, but it kind of creates an illusion of windows. And this one here does a different one. And remember, just mix and match the colors, especially these ones that have two of them, because you can create all sorts of weird combinations of stuff like this. And then if you make them lighter, then it's like thin window panels and stuff like that. And again, you know, there's just infinite possibilities. You just need to, you know, experiment a little bit and see what you like the best. So even metal can create cool little mix and match window patterns. Like, see, these two floors don't have anything. It's just trying to figure out, and of course this is just experimenting, because it's very hard to figure out the first time around what you want. If you just want something basic, I would highly recommend you go for one of these interesting textured patterns, because even these ones are more likely to give you something that stands out above something else. So now again, let's go over to the concrete. These are the car patterns, of course, over here. But, you know, the wood, you can get some cool pattern designs too if you're creating, like, you know, something rustic or, you know, log cabin, stuff like that. Anyways, so we'll just take this, and again, remember that you can do all sorts of cool things with the concrete. So for example, you can take this, or the only one you can't change the color of is this, of course, but you can always replicate that just using these. These are just like recommended colors, and I would highly recommend you try to create your own, because those are always more interesting to me. So you can get roughly the same shades of this beige color by using this, and, you know, just trying to figure out which one would make a good color here. So I'm not going to particularly mix and match right now, but of course you're going to have an opportunity to do that when you try out this program. And notice how when I use this block here, This block's only purpose is to make this wall brown like everything else, because if I had used the original, then it would also be this bluish color. So you wanted this to be concrete here. Now notice also that I didn't do this over here, and that's why this wall is blue. So what I can do is come back here now, and it saves the color that you've just been using, so I don't even have to color it again. And you can just put this in right over here. And again, it's just, I mean, if you want to be perfect and try to get the fillets exactly as you want them so it's uniform across the entire building, that's really great. I don't necessarily have time for that right now, so I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is just expand this out a little bit and stretch it in so I don't have these windows showing on the outside. And then I do have this one little bit here, so I can just decide whether I want to fill this up with like windows. See, so now I have like a little pattern even inside here, and just make sure this door gets back outside. And what you'll notice is if you look at the complexity meter, we have all of these shapes here, and it only takes up 2 circles. Imagine how much it would have taken if you tried to fill up this with like hundreds of these windows. It just wouldn't have worked, and you don't even get these cool patterns with the windows that you would have gotten if you experiment a little bit. So, you know, again, you just want to try to be creative with the tool. Like, for example, roofs are really cool because you can get all sorts of nice stair type things, or ramps, you know. This one I would keep in mind. These two are cool. And then, of course, these ones are the most versatile of all of them. So, if you stretch this out, it makes a long roof like this, which is perfect for making stairs. See? So you can just put this in right over here, and holding down Shift, you get a nice ramp there up to the building. Couldn't ask for anything better than that, right? Now, talking about these housing features. Some of them are kind of cool. Again, I would advise you focus your efforts on trying to be creative with the tools that you have. But, you know, sometimes, you know, it's kind of cool to have, like, a picnic table or something like that, right? The only problem with these, though, is they fill up the complexity meter very quickly, see? You just, well, I mean, this isn't exactly a great example right now, but some of them, specifically ones that create light or sound, they fill up the complexity meter very quickly, specifically when you're talking about entertainment and factories. So that's just something to keep in mind. Don't span them all over the place, because not only does it look unprofessional, but it also just fills up the meter really quickly. So what I'll do is I'll just make this a bit bigger, and you can get tons of detail just, you know, coloring each individual component to the way you want it to. Now, of course, at the moment, the roof is kind of boring as it is. Now, suppose you wanted to have a cylinder that came out, but you wanted this top of the cylinder to be going out vertically rather than horizontally. However, there's no tool, if you notice, that you can use to turn this. Even if you hold down Tab, which is the general mode for rotating objects, see, if you hold down Tab for this, it'll rotate, but you can't get that through this. However, there is a way around that. Look here to connectors. Take a connector. It doesn't matter which one. Just take one of them. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be keeping it. Place this thing right on top of the connector. Let me just put, get this in an area where there's a little bit more space. So let's put it on this column for right now. We want to rotate this thing, put it on here, then just hold down this. Notice, however, you can press Tab with this, and this item here that you just placed on it is now locked to it. So what you can do is rotate this. Notice that this thing also turns with it. So all you have to do now is just take this thing and place it somewhere else in your shape, somewhere where it won't disappear. I wouldn't advise using Shift, because sometimes it doesn't remove the lock. So just, you know, place it somewhere. You can always remove it later. However, once you get it off, it's not locked anymore, so you can just delete this thing. And now you have a sideways cylinder, which you can use for construction. See? So now you can just place this on, move it about as you want, Shift, and you have your shape here. Now, I'm just going to put this up here, and maybe I'll put some cheesy patterns on it, make it look like a logo or something like that. And maybe I'll go with I mean, there's obviously lots of things to choose from. I'm not going to, you know, choose anything too profound right now. I'll just go with this giraffe pattern because it looks kind of cool. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I can't stress, I'm sorry, I can't stress how important that these connectors are. I mean, really, just try to use them if you want to create all sorts of cool things, because you're not going to be able to get all of these patterns and everything like this with the, you know, circles with just going with the conventional pattern, you know, conventional tools and everything like that. So just try to use this to your ability, and again, there's basically infinite possibilities with this tool. So just delete this, move this up, and now we even have a nice little logo thing for this. Now, as you noticed, this is a little bit off, lopsided. That's because I put it on the column lopsided too, so you just have to be really careful when you're using your connectors, because any little thing will, you know, cause them to go off pattern. But that, you know, that could also go to your advantage too. If you place a cylinder like this up here, and you place this anywhere on this, you can literally create any orientation for this shape you want. See, now this one is, you know, to an angle, and if you turn this, you can get it to go any way you want. So there's really no limit to what you can do with this thing. So let's anyway get rid of this because we don't want this anymore. Place this on top of here, and we'll just rotate this again. Actually, what I'll do is I'll turn this up like this, and then place this here on the ground. Delete this. Control, Shift. Now I have a logo. So now the last thing is using these details. Details are really cool, but they clutter up your thing really quickly, and there's a lot less you can do with details than anything else. Notice that the variation between shape sizes is much less than it is with, you know, using one of these. So I would advise you stick with these as much as you can, but sometimes you like the rigid edges that this shape has, and you can't get that with the regular tools. So again, just, you know, try to use those if you can. I mean, you know, try to use them in the situations which you need the specific benefit you get. Like, for example, the charismatic, which is like a railing, is really cool for, you know, making railings, but it's also really cool for just decorating. For example, if you take this, put it on the side like this, and stretch this out, you can make like a goal for a soccer pitch, or, you know, create some sort of mechanical device of some sort. Like, for example, if you turn this around, holding down tab to turn, then you can just place this up here and stretch this, and now you have a unique contraption. Now, I don't know what this would necessarily do, but, you know, you can do anything you want with these things. You can make a skylight or put a box up here, and it's kind of cool to have variations on the roof like this, because it's kind of boring just looking at a box, but it's much more interesting to have all this stuff going on the roof here, because you're going to be looking at the roof. You're not really looking at the side of the building, you know, because you're going to be overhead most of the time, unless you're doing an adventure. So anyways, again, holding down Shift to make it go into the building like that. So the summary basically is that there's basically anything you can do with the tool you want, and it's just being creative and experimenting with what you have. Color this like that, and we have a lot of weird stuff going on here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say this is the type of building I would want to live in, but we've seen a lot of variations of stuff you can do with the tool. So again, try to utilize these as much as you can, because you can create some pretty cool stuff with this. If you want, you can always look at some of my stuff and see what I've created, and some of it isn't really that great, but, you know, some of it I think I've been able to do some pretty impressive stuff with. So I'd love to see the kinds of things you can do too with the tool. If you just mess around, we can create all sorts of weird things. You know, all sorts of cool things, and all sorts of things that make great adventures and everything like that. And I know it's an old game, and I know that most people probably won't even watch this anymore, but, I mean, still, it's something to keep in mind if you do want to play the game for whatever reason. So, again, thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see what kinds of stuff you can make. So, I'm just going to name this Test Apartment, and we're going to go ahead and save that, and you can use it in-game now. Thanks for watching.